What are the top 8 best limited cards of all time in regular sets? This is my list excluding Modern Masters and Cube. And for a card to make this list, it's good if it's colorless, if it's cheap, if it's very hard to answer, if it snowballs very hard. So for example, a card like Baneslayer Angel is not gonna make this list. And it's not because Baneslayer Angel is not a fantastic card. It's just that it's a little too easy to deal with. So while that's not an argument for that card not being a bomb, it's not going to make this list. And another card of the same vein is the Scarab God, which I guess you could say is an honorable mention. That's a fantastic limited card, but there are some common answers to it. It can be a little slow to get going, you need something good in the graveyard. And that was a very fast format with Exert. A little less faster with Hour of Devastation, but still very fast. So I guess Scarab God is an honorable mention. I have 2 more honorable mentions. The first are companions before the rules change. But they changed the rule. First you could just get a companion and play it immediately. So cards like Garuda, Lurus, Giganta were one of the best limited cards of all time. But they didn't make the list because there's a lot of them. And the rules changes also because now you have to pay free, which means they are a little worse. Another honorable mention is Mascot Exhibition. This is a card that needs you to have lessons to go get it. And sometimes you don't get them, or they are kind of weak, or you don't get enough. So while Mascot Exhibition is probably one of the absolute best cards of all time, it reminds me a little bit of Companions in that you always have access to them. It's not gonna make the final list. Alright, so number 8 is Sky Sovereign Council Flagship, a card from Kaladesh. And this is a vehicle, but it has an enter the play ability where it comes into play. It deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. And that also happens when it attacks. And it's a 6/5 flyer with crew 3. So it comes down, kills something substantial, and then whenever it attacks, it also can kill something. And 6 power in the air just kills your opponent so fast it can clear away flying jump blockers as well. And it's colorless. And vehicles aren't that easy to answer as you might think. While it is an artifact, it doesn't tie to sorcery speed creature removal. You have to have instant speed creature removal. And your opponent gets to maybe do something about that. So Sky Sovereign is a fantastic card. And it's good when you're behind, good when the game is even, good when you're ahead. And it can help you come back into game. Because it also can block the turn it comes into play if you need to. You take out something with 3 toughness, and then you have a 6-powered flying blocker. If you can have something with crew. So it's just an all-around fantastic card. Number 7. Oko, Thief of Crowns. A completely busted card that's banned in all formats. 1 green-blue for a 5 loyalty planeswalker somehow with 3 good abilities. +2 you can make a artifact or creature lose all abilities and become a 3/3. So that works on your opponent's creature. So if your opponent's got something huge or annoying, then you can +2 and take it away. You can also +2 on your own food, which you can make for +2. That's the +2. +1 is the thing loses all abilities. So it comes to play on turn 3, and then immediately you can make a food, and then the next turn you get a 3/3 for the food. And the loyalty goes up so high it's almost impossible to kill. And you can deal with annoying cards like Sir Conrad the Grim, very annoying card. And if you got some random food, there are cards like Curious Pair that make a food early. You can even make a 3/3 on turn 3. There are not an unreasonable amount of cards that make food early. It works with the green theme, which is food. It's fantastic there. One reason why Oko isn't higher is because green-blue wasn't the best color combination in Throne of Eldraine. It's actually one of the worst. And that was a pretty fast format with mono red, mono white. So green-blue was one of the weaker color combinations. Not unplayable, but that's another reason why Oko isn't on the absolute highest of the list. And if you draw Oko late, unlike something like Sky Sovereign, for example, or some other cards, can be a little slow. It's not bad if you draw it late, but it's a little less good than some of the other cards on this list. Number 6, Citadel Siege, an old classic from Fate Reforged. This is 2 white for enchantment. You can choose cons or dragons. You either have to give a creature you control 2+1/+1 counters every combat, and it happens the turn it comes into play if you play it pre-combat, which you should. And that's just insane because the counters stay. So every turn you're getting +2/+2 with haste, the counters is, and you can spread it around so you're not susceptible to creature removal. So this is just an awesome card. The funny thing is that the second ability looks very good too, tapping a creature every combat, but that's just so much worse than the first ability. So that's something that you can do when you're absolutely desperate. It is just, you should just consider that a bonus. But this card just completely takes over the game. It's almost impossible to lose when you have this card because all your creatures becomes huge. You can put, if your opponent doesn't have an answer, you can put everything on the same creature and just your opponent's going to be in the abyss very soon, or you spread it around. And it's just a fantastic card. Number 5 on this list is Luminarch Aspirant, a constructed all-star as well. 1 and a white for a 1/1, but every combat you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. It could be the Luminarch Aspirant, so you can play it on turn 2, and it comes into play and becomes a 2/2, and then the next one is a 3/3 or a 4/4 and a 5/5. And if you suspect your opponent has removal, you can put the counters on something else, just like Citadel Siege. These are somewhat similar cards. This card is more fragile, but if you got this going for a couple of turns, it doesn't even matter if your opponent kills the Luminarch Aspirant because you have so many counters on other cards. If you play with Siege Veteran from one of the latest sets, that's an insanely good card too, and that's 1 mana more. Has some extra text and extra power toughness, but the difference of playing this on turn 2 and from 3 is huge. It's absolutely insane how sick this card is. And it's just 2 mana, and it's not even that bad to play it on turn 6 or 7. Way worse, but the fact that it's a 2-drop that often just wins the game if you play it on turn 2 is just incredible. They even had to remake the wording for Luminarch Aspirant into Constructed because it was so good, so they have to change it until the end of turn. But still. Number 4, the last Planeswalker on our list, that's Gideon Yura. 3 white for a 6 loyalty Planeswalker with +2 to force your opponent to attack Gideon the next turn. -2 destroys some tapped creature, and 0 makes it a 6/6 indestructible creature for the turn. This card is just busted on so many levels. The +2 often means that your opponent has to sacrifice a couple of creatures because they have to attack. You can just make the perfect blocks. Gideon goes up to 8 loyalty, so it's almost impossible for Gideon to die. So you make the perfect blocks, and then your opponent only has blockers, which are the creatures they could play that turn. So sometimes you can just kill your opponent. It also prevents you from dying, because your opponent has to attack Gideon. Not a single creature can attack you. So the +2 is just insane, and 8 loyalty means that you can let a couple of creatures through and Gideon's still alive. And then immediately you can -2 and kill your opponent's best creature. You can also just play Gideon and immediately -2 it if your opponent attacked you, and then you are left with a Planeswalker that took out your opponent's best creature. And the 0 is not nothing either, it's a 6/6 indestructible. As if a 6/6 isn't hard enough to deal with, it's also indestructible. And it just kills your opponent so fast. And remember, you can play Gideon +2, your opponent has to attack with everything, and if they don't have a creature, you can attack with all your creatures and a 6/6 the turn after. So you can't -0 Gideon the turn comes to play, not for any good value, but it's just does everything. It kills it also cuts down on the number of turns your opponent has to come back. And another crazy part of that Gideon Yura is that in Rise of the Eldrazi, there were basically no answers. There were no Oblivion Rings. The removal that usually these days take out Planeswalkers, like Annihilating Glare or Powerstone Fracture. There were Vendetta and Corpse Such, and those couldn't touch Gideon. So there were basically no answers. If you play Gideon, it was almost 100% to win. Not 100%, but very, very close to be 100%. Because you couldn't die to damage, you could attack back, it takes out creatures, and then kills your opponent very fast. So one of the absolute craziest card ever. And number 3, we have Grave Titan, one of the classic limited cards. This is 4 black for a 6/6 with Death Touch that when it comes into play or attacks you get 2/2 zombies. So it creates 10 power and 10 toughness for 6 mana, and then Grave Titan, as it's a 6/6 Death Touch, it's almost there is no way you can't attack with Grave Titan after that. It has a clean attack. Your opponent would have to have like a 6 power first strike if you're not to be able to attack. And then you get 4 power and 4 toughness more. And you can often just attack with everything because your opponent probably has to double block Grave Titan and then your other creature can get through. And since Grave Titan has Death Touch, if your opponent blocks it with 2/4/4, they lose both creatures. But what also made Grave Titan so sick is that the common removal spell in black were Doomblade. So your opponent couldn't even Doomblade Grave Titan because it was black. And this was also in M11 where it first came out, was a pretty slow format, so you can almost guarantee to be able to cast it. And then you were almost invincible unless your opponent was killing you with flyers. Black was a pretty solid color in that set. It had Doomblade, which was great against non-black decks. And it had a lot of good cards like Sign in Blood to dig you towards Grave Titan. There are also ways to get it back, which is obviously crazy. So Grave Titan is one of the old classics. I don't think that Grave Titan would be that good in every set. I mean, it would always obviously be a complete bomb, but it wouldn't be like this top 10 limited card of all time if the format was very well suited for Grave Titan with this being slow and Doomblades and stuff like that. Alright, so now number 2, we have a card that actually made you could maybe play even 39 swamps and this card, and that's Pack Rat. 1 and a black for a 1/1 rat. This has power and toughness equal to the number of rats you control. You can pay 2 and a black and discard a card to make a copy of Pack Rat. So if you play Pack Rat on turn 2, and then on turn 3 you immediately discard a card, you have now 2/2/2s. And then on turn 4 you discard a card and now you have 3/3/3s, and then 4/4/4s, and then your opponent you can start attacking too. This is a card that's so crazy. When you play it on turn 2, you don't even have to play another card for an entire game. You can just spend your entire turn just discarding a card. And when you go up to turn 6, you can make 2 rats. And your opponent has a very narrow window to kill it. Because the card you create with Pack Rat, it's not just a rat token. It's an exact copy of Pack Rat. So when you discard a card to Pack Rat, your opponent's gonna need more than 1 removal spell because you have 2 exact copies of Pack Rat. The fact that it's a token doesn't mean that it doesn't have this ability. So you can just keep doing Pack Rat every turn, and you don't have to play another card. And what's so insane is that there have been rumors, and I've actually done this too. I played 39 swamps and 1 Pack Rat, and I used mulligan to Pack Rat. Because once you play Pack Rat, you don't need anything else. There are very few answers to it. There was Piffing Needle and some red burn spells that could get going. But because, as I said, you needed to kill Pack Rat before you played a copy. So if you're on the play and play Pack Rat on turn 2, your opponent has 1 turn to kill it. Otherwise you just make a copy. And with 39 swamps in your deck, you're never gonna miss a land drop. So Pack Rat's one of the craziest cards that has ever been printed for limited. So it's number 2 on the list. And the number 1 on the list is Umezawa's Jitte. Another colorless card. 2 mana equipment. And you equip it for 2. And whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage, you get 2 counters. And you can remove a counter to give the equipped creature +2/+2, give a creature -1/-1, or gain 2 life. So this is a card that's crazy when you move it around, because you equip it on a creature, you attack, and it doesn't really matter if your opponent kills the creature, you're left with 2 counters. So when you move the Jitte next time, your creature can get +4/+4, which means that it's very hard to block it profitably. And after that, you're just going to town, because you get encounters every turn. You can kill your opponent's evasive creatures, you can kill small creatures that are gang blocking your creature with Jitte, and if your opponents are about to kill you with something, you can gain life. It becomes completely absurd when you attack with Jitte. Your opponent realizes there are no gold blocks, you get 2 counters. You then move Jitte to a blocker, which now can get +4/+4, and your opponent can't attack you, and then you attack them next turn, and As with a lot of these other cards, there's also a card that's very hard to answer. There aren't that many artifact destruction cards in these sets, and killing creatures is not good enough. Yeah, you might get a little bit of reprieve killing Umezawa's Jitte if your opponent equips it, but the problem is still there the next turn. And once Jitte got 3 or 4 counters, the creature is just truly unkillable, and then you're just gonna get 2 counters every turn. And soon your opponent realizes, well, I can never attack you, I can never block in a good way, I'm in chump block mode very fast. So it goes into every deck because it's colorless, just have to have enough creatures. And it's one of the absolute sickest limited cards of all time. Also, creatures were a little bit weaker back then, so there's a lot of 1 toughness creatures you can pick off, and you can just put Jitte on anything and you're gonna win the game pretty easily. So this was my list. I'm sure there are cards that what is this card not on this list? But there are some honorable mentions, and well, make sure to mention in the comments if you have a special card that you think should be on this list.